I'm not a lawyer, but LA Reid has also been accused of SA in a lawsuit that was filed under the Adult Survivors Act, and I read all 28 pages, so let me give you a recap. The lawsuit was filed by a woman named Drew Dixon, and Drew is a music producer, entrepreneur, former general manager of John Legend's record label, and a host of other titles. The lawsuit actually details a really impressive career for Drew, including signing Nas to a publishing deal, also overseeing every aspect of the recording of Method Man and Mary J's You're All I Need. So as far as the actual allegations, the lawsuit starts with alleging that in 1995, Drew was brutally by Russell Simmons, resulting in her forced departure from her job at Def Jam at the time. So following Def Jam, Drew was hired at Arista Records. In the year 2000, L.A. Reid became president of Arista Records, and Drew started reporting directly to him. Now, the two had known each other prior to this, but once Drew started working for L.A., the suit says that he was very flirtatious with her, including a time when L.A. asked Drew to come with him and his wife to look for apartments in New York. They were moving there from Atlanta. But once Drew arrived, she realized that L.A.'s wife was never coming. It was just her, L.A., and the realtor. And according to this lawsuit, L.A. made flirtatious comments throughout the appointment. Eventually, the realtor commented that L.A. was clearly in love with her. So in January of 2001, the suit alleges that there was a company-wide retreat in Puerto Rico. The company was handling all of the travel arrangements, and at the last minute, Drew was told that all of the senior level execs would be traveling over on a private plane. The lawsuit says that Drew boarded the plane and discovered that the only people on the plane was her and L.A. Reid. L.A. asked her to sit next to him to go over materials, and then allegedly began playing with her hair, kissing her, and then assaulting her. Now, the second assault alleged in the complaint stems from a work event in 2001, in which L.A. Reid allegedly asked Drew to join him for a ride and that he would drop her off. According to the suit, Drew had been avoiding L.A. since the Puerto Rico incident, but according to her, that was resulting in him not approving her artist or preventing her from moving forward with her work. So Drew takes the ride and hopes that since there's a driver that nothing would happen. But according to the lawsuit, shortly into the ride, L.A. began allegedly groping her, kissing her, and assaulting her again. Following the second alleged assault, Drew says she ignored and avoided L.A., but it resulted in him sabotaging her career, including passing on Kanye West when she brought him in, and canceling multiple appointments and performance auditions for John Legend. The suit says that because L.A. Reid and these assaults drove Drew out of the music industry, we lost the ear that heard My Love Is Your Love as a demo and brought it for Whitney Houston, the person who had a hand in The Boy Is Mine for Brandy and Monica, and the person that spotted artists such as Kanye West, John Legend, Toya, and Alice Smith. So all of these things are attributed to Drew Dixon in this lawsuit. And because of these assaults, it says that she left this industry. The suit says she's lost out on money, her career, and even suffered severe depression. Drew, in the lawsuit, gives an example as recent as 2017 in which she says that L.A. Reid, even now, decades later, is punishing her for having refused to submit to his sexual demands. The lawsuit also notes that Ms. Dixon has been told that although she is well-known, well-respected, and highly qualified, she is essentially blackballed because she has spoken out against Mr. Simmons and Mr. Reid. Thus, the harm is ongoing and unceasing. So she is suing for battery and assault, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and for violation of the Gender Motivated Violence Act. And she has requested a jury trial.
Hey, 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 it's Fun Helmet, and I'm gonna sing a song for you, and Bill's gonna show you a thing or two. You'll have some fun now with me and all the gang, learning from each other while we do our thing. Gonna have a good time. Hey, hey.
This is Bill Cosby coming at you with music and fun. And if you're not careful, you may learn something before it's done. Hey, hey, hey.
You know me, I was a middle child and shit. I was a middle child and shit. Like sometimes I like to do things in increments of five. Whatnot. It's a obsessive compulsive disorder. You know, a coping mechanism that I had to get through formative years rife with extreme gaslighting and abuse and whatnot. Anyway, that being said, I always, in these situations, they say, there's one person's story, the other person's story, and then the truth is somewhere right up the middle. And I tend to believe that based on my own life experience and shit. I tend to believe that shit. I want to say that for the record, I know that the music industry and the film industry, the entertainment industry as a whole is corrupt. And a lot of what you see is manufactured reality. It's heightened reality and shit. And the people inside of it are going through that sort of cognitive dissonance and shit, where they have to deny their own reality and shit to get through the day and shit, which is why there's so much substance abuse and addictions and criminal criminal behavior among other things and shit. Okay, I'm saying there's a lot of this bullshit on the slide. Okay, just sliding through, being the Greek chorus and a lot of different stories over the years. All right, I know it's a bunch of words, Sally. Got to bear with me and shit. I want to talk about this. This fucking lawsuit and shit. Okay, all right. Some shit happened in the '90s and it's 2025. Make it make sense and shit, right? I always thought that, growing up and when I was uninformed and shit, I was tragically clueless and shit, leading to my own fucking demise. I always thought like when somebody did such a really bad crime and shit, the victim would instantly report it to the police unless, organized crime was involved or, semi-organized crime like gangbangers or some shit. I wouldn't hesitate to report a heinous crime that had occurred to me and shit. I actually have done so in the past. And, I've been in situations where I didn't know I was in danger and had a protective order filed on my behalf and shit. Not the first time, definitely won't be the last time from my recent experiences. So I want to talk about this fucking lawsuit involving REID and shit. And I'll have you know that I am a misogynist anarchist and shit. Right off the bat, right off the rip, and specifically when it comes to my own supposed ethnic community and shit, okay? That being said, I think that REID is a degenerate individual, okay? With a shitload of money, with a whole lot of fucking money. And I don't think he cares about who's up under him or who's he standing behind, as they bent over and shit, or any direction, right? I don't care. Right? This guy's done a lot of shit, done a lot of shit, done a lot of worked with a lot of iconic artists and shit, brought people up and shit. I think he even brought up Pink's fucking ass, and I'll forgive him for that. But he's involved a bunch of people and shit, and I've heard stories, alright? And that being said, and shit, the other woman, I think they Drew Dixon or something, uh, I tend to side eye her, okay? Because she was already on another prolific lawsuit involving Russell Simmons and his alleged behavior towards her, egregious sexual, malfeasant behavior, sexually criminal behavior towards her on a sexual level and shit. It's a dirty crime. That's a dirty, nasty crime. Makes me sick to my fucking guts and shit. I don't have to explain that or nothing, but you would think that somebody would go through that one time, they would be going through that a second time and shit. That, maybe she'll have that conceal and carry on her, or be wary of people, or be able to see the signs once that happens to you and shit. So it's kind of telling that she would be involved in, that lawsuit with Russell Simmons and the current one with REID and shit, and who knows how many other people she has behind, in her closet and shit that did a supposed essay and shit. Okay, it's been over 15 years or so since this shit went down, and it's 2025, and then here's a lawsuit and shit. Maybe she filed it years ago. I don't know, and I don't give a fucking shit. But I know one thing: when something bad happens to you, you usually don't go and repeat the experience unless you're some kind of addict and shit, or you're a sociopath or a fucking narcissist and shit. I'm not accusing. I definitely ain't victim shaming and shit. But when you see somebody repeating a pattern over and over again and shit, what is? I looked at her and shit, and the woman is conventionally attractive in some circles, but it's not somewhere somebody's gonna attack her wherever she goes and shit. This is happening 2 times and shit within that time period and shit. And like, well, what happens to you when you go out? Why don't you hire a security? Why don't you hire yourself some personal security and shit to help you out with these problems and shit? Okay, all right. And if you listen to the stories that's read by the content creator and shit, uh, common sense, emotional intelligence tells you that she was on some bullshit. Okay, why the fuck would you be traveling with a man and his wife to go look at homes in New York and shit? That's their personal fucking business. Are you his personal fucking assistant? They say she was a producer of music, right? An artist, shit. Why the fuck would she be doing that shit? Okay, why would she allow that? You know, that's stripping away artichoke of personal space and shit, of professionalism and shit. When you're doing shit like that, okay? She wanted to get something out of the deal. She wanted to ingratiate herself to this wealthy man, this legendary producer in the music industry and shit. This executive in the music industry who's already has shady shit going on that she had to know about if she's in the know. She's in that business and shit. It's a dirty fucking business, okay? It's a dirty fucking business. Right? I can't tell you how many insurance reports I wrote for collateral damages nowhere near the nucleus or whatever the fuck she's suing them for. Right? Fucking ridiculous. Sometimes I laugh my ass off. Sometimes I wish I was that dim bulb that, a lot of people in my hometown thought I was and shit. Sometimes I wish I was that guy. Instead of somebody sitting back in the cut just silently looking at them and shit. Shaking my motherfucking head. Knowing that cognitive logic dictate that I sit in a porta potty of other people's bad decisions. And be that as it may and shit, I think she made some bad decisions that led to these things happening and shit. A predator when you see one, especially when she supposedly went through this shit with Russell Simmons and shit. And I don't recall seeing him arrested for this shit or going through it in public and shit until much years later when this Me Too shit started, and he jetted out of the country and shit. I mean, he has remained, as far as I know, he's remained out of the country ever since this Me Too shit started. All right. Now I'm not saying he didn't do the shit. Okay, but for her to be this close to that man, so powerful a man as Russell Simmons with the connections that he has, and then go from that shit to another motherfucker with this in the same profile and shit is telling. All right, it's telling and shit. All right, and the story doesn't make sense. They never think this shit out. The attorneys never think this shit out. It makes people have certain thoughts about the whole scenario. I'm a misogynist anarchist and shit. I'm very cynical when I hear a woman talking about some kind of tragedy involving their underwear. Okay, what the fuck are you doing going somewhere with him and his wife? What are you doing going somewhere with him and his motherfucking wife to look at homes that they're gonna live in, not your ass and shit? And then this guy's just all out and open and shit. So if I was an asshole, I'd call you a side chick and shit. And that maybe they were looking for places for him and his wife and a side apartment for you, so he could slide in and shit. I hope that man has receipts if that is true, right? Then you get on the plane, and discover no one's there. Okay. Still got on the bitch once you found nobody was in that motherfucker. You ain't try to walk back down the stairs of the private plane and shit because you want to be close to power. Right? You want to be close to power and shit. So you in that plane and you got turned up again, supposedly, allegedly and shit, right? Where's the fucking cops? Why don't you just go straight to the nearest precinct and shit, wherever you land, report this crime and shit, and get the ball rolling and shit. Okay? They would probably, REID would probably settle out of court and require you to sign several ironclad non-disclosure agreements, and you'll be able to write your own check and shit. But you want to stay in the industry and shit, all right? And you need to be near that power. You need that validation. Despite your impressive list of artists and people that you've produced for and shit, right? Why am I talking about this to my audience? All right, why am I talking about this to my audience and shit? Kings, I want you to understand the reason I'm talking about this is because, a lot of us get caught up in this white knight shit when we're uninformed, okay? You grew up in a matriarchal household and shit. They'll teach you to blindly, what's that shit they say? Believe all women and shit, and it would get your ass killed. It will get you fucked up and shit. It will change your life. It will destroy you on so many levels, and I don't want to see that shit. Okay, all right? There's, if you got a one with a pattern of behavior where you're continually listen to them when they talk to your motherfucking ass. All right, when they're continually having the same experience, negative experiences with the opposite sex, the people that share your plumbing down there, there's something going on there. Shit, that is a red flag. That is what they say. These women call it ick and shit. That is an extreme ick that you need to understand and recognize the shit that it's a fucking pattern. That this woman has some kind of psychological issues and shit, or that she's a social climber who was so intent on getting to where she wants to go that she had put herself repeatedly in dangerous situations and shit. And I just think it's dirty and disgusting and unprofessional and shit. And, it makes me sad. It throws a pall on all the great music that, these people did that I love and that, I listen to soothe to calm my spirit and shit. Okay? And it's all tainted and shit. I thought it was shitty. I'm a creative, right? Primarily, I was an artist initially, and we always used to talk about how we didn't really want a female to be in our circle and shit when we were working on a group project or something because they always brought drama and shit, or some weird shit happened, collateral damage and shit, like shit that just sullies the project itself and shit. Right? I call it the dirty panty syndrome and shit. And more comedic yet cynical times and shit. When I was younger, I used to always, sometimes I would talk to my friends and I would describe, these dirty, nasty incidents, with involving a woman and her underpants and, situations, embarrassing situations. I would always say that, you be scared because the chicks be like a cowboy. They have their used underwear on a lasso and they be swinging that shit over their head like Wonder Woman, try to throw it on your fucking face for a fucking bag and shit. And we saw that with the Me Too and the later Times Up movements and shit. We even saw that before they was teeing up to that shit when they had that video called the catcall video. Right? It's fucking ridiculous and shit. And I think it's disgusting. It's another episode that, unfortunately comes out of the Cosby playbook and shit. And for the record, on that Cosby shit, he was sentenced to 3 to 10 years. Sentence, right? For giving a woman an aspirin and shit. And he did 3 of the 10 years, and you people still bitch about it. He did the minimum, a billionaire. Made money while he was sitting in gin pop and shit, blind, legally blind, and you people are still upset about that. And it disgusts me enough that I would make these videos about the bullshit. Okay? Now I don't know if this is gonna be a Cosby playbook video or is this gonna be like a front, a front street video. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking towards the former actually, as I sit here recording this bullshit. Look, if you were a female and she keep telling you about repeatedly different instances, different people. Oh, this guy was being aggressive with me. He's flirting with me. He's aggressively pursuing me. I told him I have a boyfriend, this and that and the other and shit. It's your prerogative to investigate that, as much as you can without being intrusive or quote unquote controlling and make an informed decision and shit. And that the proper and most informed decision, if you got more than 1 or 2 of these and shit, considering what the woman looks like visually, is to cut ties with that woman and shit because she's on some bullshit that's gonna hurt both of you, primarily you. Right? Women are genetically predisposed to rebrand themselves after bullshit goes down. They can't compartmentalize all the bullshit they do, even between the sheets and shit. So a lot of them are doing unethical things to get into these circles with these power brokers and shit. And hey, I don't judge and shit, but don't look at me and then I look at you and we both know what it is and shit, and then you get mad at me because I don't give a fuck. Okay? All right? I'm not here to save nobody. You're not here to put your life on the line for somebody else. You're not here to make somebody's quality of life better. You're not here to be somebody's security guard, an emotional tampon, a surrogate stepfather. You're not here for none of that bullshit. You have one life to live. Okay? Right? The fact that she's next to Russell Simmons, going through some shit, some heroin shit, you read the briefs, You know, and then going through the same shit with another fucking guy. Almost the exact same kind of shit, right? Going through that bullshit. It tells you she putting herself in those situations and shit, okay? And she might be a covert side chick and shit, okay? Or bust down. I don't care what her pedigree is. She sullied her own professional career with this bullshit. Alright? And if this shit was really going down the way she said it did, she would report it to the police. Okay? Irregardless of the outcome. I'm sure she has money. Alright? But she don't want to downsize her finances to live responsibly and live off that money that she's already made or she's already fucked off and shit. And she's attractive and she's a goddamn exotic mulatta and shit with kind of hard face. She could get another kind of successful guy and coast on that money she already fucking made from these artists, so she could foster deals with these artists and shit and do ghost work with them. All right, there's many avenues. She didn't have to go down this road and shit with these power brokers and shit. And I would be remiss to say I'm pretty sure there's other guys she got stories on that did shit. Right? And I'm getting tired of this bullshit. Okay? I'm getting tired. I find it disgusting. Right? I find it disgusting. I think I've felt this way since I was in uh the military and shit. Like when you go through basic training, there's a thing called Advanced Individual Training, AIT. And I was in there and this chick pulled some shit like where you know, she had a simp and the NCO, the non-commissioned officer, passed her on some shit she shouldn't have passed on. You had the two people that were accredited, and then he had to go backtrack his shit to get his ass out of trouble. And then later on, I noticed that there was some kind of big sexual scandal over there with his shit. A lot of shit like what's being reported in this brief and shit. And I know that it's true, right? And I never said I didn't think L.A. Reid did any of that shit. I think he did a bunch of that shit, but through a different lens and shit. Because I think she was kind of a side chick or a jump off or something. That somebody's available and shit. She's in these circles up close and personal with this guy. You think he don't know about the Russell Simmons bullshit? You think he don't know about that shit? And she's still there? So they understand each other on some level and shit. Right? They understand each other. He knows who and what she is, and she knows exactly who and what she is. And she made an informed decision to be in that circle and shit, and got an experience and shit. There's so many layers to the artichoke. Talking to men now, talking to black men. There's so many layers to this bullshit. And trust me, you don't want to find out you don't want to peel that shit back and see what's in there. It's disgusting. All right? Nothing's worse than when you actually know exactly who your partner is, and it's something super disgusting, and you got to look at each other in the face and shit. Even if you walk away, she's there forever. And I don't feel the ways about this shit. Victimhood, I don't know. Bad transactional relationship, business and otherwise. Yeah, definitely and shit. Definitely cross lines and shit. Ain't no way in the hell somebody's working for me, they're gonna be coming up in my house and shit with my wife, if I had a wife and shit, and my kids, and just being all up my ass. I don't like it like that, man. That's just too much and shit. Even if I'm fucking you my side chick, you ain't going nowhere near my family. You ain't gonna know shit about that. You're just gonna be somewhere, doing you. Okay? Now I'm cynical. I'm a misogynist anarchist and shit. I don't perceive that I would at any point have any kind of sugar baby or side chick relationship with anyone. I'm burnt. Okay? I'm burnt from my first fucking relationship and shit to now and shit. Nah, I can't see it. It disgusts me. Alright? It disgusts me. I always put it like this when somebody asked me about it in the past. I said, well, if the woman can get me to do some shit like that and bend me, she's one hell of a lady, and I'll tip my hat to her. All right. So, I don't know how it's going to shake out. Maybe L.A. Reid, the whole goal is to get them to settle out of court and shit. But once that shit goes to the DA, it got public, the DA can pick it up, and cause she can come back for more later and shit. I find it disgusting. It's like a bottom feeder. It's a zombie from your sexual past coming back to eat you again. Right? I say, fuck it. You went public with your shit, no settlement. Okay? We got to go through all this shit, and I'm going to put all my assets in an offshore account. I'm going to leave enough there to settle a lawsuit, and the rest of that shit's going in an offshore account, somewhere where it can't be reached and shit, which is kind of risky because when you're hiding criminal assets and shit, other criminals know you're hiding that shit, and they go in your shit and clean your shit out. That's a video for another time and shit. Hopefully in the future. Kings, Kings, please, please, man. Now you work so hard just to get a little bit. You squeeze blood out of a rock and shit. Why give it up because some dirty panties on your face for the indiscretion you had and shit? I'm not telling you to be celibate or anything. I'm telling you to move smart and intelligent in the transactional society that women would, you know, monetize their vagina and shit. Okay, and I say, okay, well, you're gonna do that. Now you're gonna get treated accordingly. That being said, keep your head on a swivel, protect your bag, and above all else, do not make fallen women the stewards of your household, okay? Because you're fucked if you do that, okay? They're gonna burn your shit down and fuck up your credit and make you politically insolvent shit. Yeah, economically insolvent, excuse me. They're gonna do that shit. Do not make fallen women the stewards of your household. Because if you do, your shit going down like the House of Usher and shit, okay? And not the singer, okay? It's the fucking literature. Read that shit, all right? Do not, more importantly, most importantly of all, shit, because this has far-reaching and far-flung effects. Do not make fallen women the mothers of your children, all right? That is the most important. Do not make fallen, damaged, broken, malevolent, soulless women the mothers of your children, all right? Because your children are your future. They're your legacy and shit, okay? And you have to protect that, okay? That is the most important thing in your motherfucking life, regardless of what you want to do with it, right? And I tell you this because I love you and I care about you, and I don't want you to come down that road and see me up on that fucking cross looking down at your ass saying, yeah, you fucked up, all right? Don't follow in my footsteps, okay? Okay, don't live a living death and shit up on this bitch and shit, okay? Don't come down here with me, all right? You go the other way and you live your best life and shit. That's the best thing you can do for me, all right? I'll be up there, doing, I don't know, waiting until the apocalypse or something. Anyway, that being said and shit, and I'm not even black pill my shit. I'm getting black pill there. That being said, I love y'all, man. Okay? That being said, SYSBM means plain and simply, that noise in the background is my fucking dog knocking over some shit. SYSBM means save yourself, black men. Men, goddammit, not males, because I don't care about those simps. But I do care about you. I want you to be okay. And we'll never know each other or nothing, but I want you to know somebody out there give a shit about you. Okay? They love you enough to tell you this bullshit. Alright? SYSBF means save yourself, black men. All praise to the Most High.